Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about the Brooks Glycerin 22. So it's their high drop neutral daily trainer, but I'm going to say that now it's also more an inherently stable kind of shoe in contrast to what they had before. It will also be available in the GTS Go-To Support version, and I see it as a significantly more stable and kind of practical shoe than the 21. And then we're also going to take a look and compare to some of Brooks's other Max cushion trainer, the Glycerin Max here and the Ghost Max 2. I'm going to take them out for a run here on the seacoast. That's, I think, my third run now in them, and give you my commentary on fit and ride. But let's get into a few details. So, in terms of stack height, we are at 38.28, so a 10 millimeter drop. Whereas our other two Brooks Max cushion kind of trainers are at a 6 millimeter drop. Now, that's unchanged from before, but what the big change here, in addition to the upper, is the new DNA-tuned midsole, and you can see that yellow tint. So what they do is they co-mold foams with different densities. So I think the yellow on the inside, the core, has larger bubbles and is kind of a bit softer than the outer carrier. This is a moderately soft shoe. It's a plush ride, but not a super soft ride. It has now, this is the regular version. There's also stealth fit versions. And here's just a picture of what the rear looked like, the collars looked like in the last version. Really plush, not that secure really, you were held, but here they've gone with kind of the knit upper, and there's definitely lots of very deep and quite firm cushioning at the collars. Very well held, and you'll see that in the fit comparisons. The mesh is fairly dense. The tongue is well padded. There is no, let me double check, there is no gusset here, but you're very well held. You've also got those overlays. There's also a slight change, or somewhat of a change, in the outsoles. Here's a picture of the prior versions. You can see now we have kind of more front outsole coverage. So before we get into the ride characteristics and the fit, and even some comparisons there while I'm running, this is a really good shoe if you want a steady, reliable partner. The DNA-tuned foam is quite lively. I don't think it's quite as soft as the DNA Loft we had before, but it has more spring to it. I think it's clearly a supercritical foam. So it's an excellent choice also for the runner who isn't sure about do they need stability or not. Many people, I think, really are overprescribed stability shoes. Here, you'll get enough stability, that's for sure, but as a neutral runner, I've had no problems running in it. But what I do notice is a really good kind of rear platform of support. They took a little while to break in. You can see here, I'll try to show you the flex without tipping everything over. Not too much flex, but you're relying on that 10 millimeter drop to get forward, whereas in our other two, in the Glycerin Max, you've got a very pronounced rocker. We'll talk a bit about that. So I'm going to take them out. They're $165. They'll be available February 1st, 2025. Stay tuned. So it took a few runs to break in, and the rigidity of the rear of the shoe and also the flex, but okay, let's talk about the fit of our Glycerin 22. First, the contrast with the 21 is striking. I had a real hard time, and I even had the GTS version with the raised sidewalls, with the softness and kind of the loose, baggy fit. I was a half size up, but usually that doesn't matter. Here, we have a much more locked down feel. We have a rear collar that's not over plush, toe box, plenty of room, true to size, no question about it. No looseness. They'll be available in wide, but a lot of folks who are between probably get away with it. But the mesh now, you can see, is nicely dense. It's well aerated, but this is a rugged mesh. Should be really durable. Lace up's easy. There's no gusset tongue. Just really well held here. You know, maybe a bit more than I'd like. I also notice, and we'll talk about the ride a bit more, that it is now without any GTS or go-to support, the guide rails. It is clearly an inherently stable shoe. So those with mild pronation problems or even moderate will be able to run in this shoe. I see very few that would actually need, but you know, I could be wrong, the actual GTS version, because this has a lot of stability and support. You can see the yellowish tinge, the DNA tuned. I think the center portion with different size bubbles is a little softer. The outer's a carrier. That really helps with the stability. So it's a neutral shoe, they call it, but I'd call it an inherent stability, inherent light on the stability, but definitely plenty. Headed for the coast here. So what about the ride here? Well, the DNA tuned is nice and springy, quite dense, but springy. What I really notice here is the rear of the shoe is like an extended stable platform. We do have a 10 millimeter drop, but it almost feels like the drop part starts further forward. So you get a nice toe off after a really nice stable landing. So the shock absorption is really good here. Very little vibration transmitted. 38 millimeter heel, 28 forefoot. So we got a lot of cushion. It's a kind of springy foam, but not overly so. It's pretty dense in feel, but certainly more pleasant than pure old Loft V3 so far, in terms of being kind of more consistent. Hi. So, coming through the golf course. Can't come here in the summer. So, this is the time of year I get out here on this crushed granite kind of gravel firm. A little soft from the recent snow last night. But our glycerin is steady, very stable, steady. The foam's kind of exciting. It has some nice rebound to it, but this isn't a shoe for fast or for your up-tempo. They've got the Hyperion 2.
And Hyperion Max 2.
I kind of like the Ghost Max 2. Kind of a similar geometry shoe, but with all Loft V3. And the Glycerin Max seems livelier. Their roll off the front, rapid roll I think they call it, a little snappier. But this is a good, reliable daily trainer for the beginning runner who's not too sure if they really need a stability shoe. Most probably don't. And you get plenty of support and stability here. You won't get in trouble. You won't go too fast. So it's really a good basic, it's 165, all around, somewhat deluxe, let's say, daily trainer with stable manners and a bit of excitement. So if you're looking for a modern foam trainer with a touch of excitement, plenty of basic stability, won't get you in trouble. For example, if you think the most recent Nimbus shoes from Asics with their very broad rear platforms are a bit much, I did. This is a more kind of classic geometry shoe with a 10 millimeter drop that kind of is in some ways retro, but some ways modern. The foam is great. The platform is stable. You're not going to run fast in these, but you will get reliable miles or kilometers in. And if you're a beginner runner, it's an excellent first choice. And if you're a heavier runner, I think it'll be good too. If you're more experienced and you just want a shoe that gets you through daily or recovery miles, no problemo, good choice. I kind of like a shoe with a bit of stability for those kind of runs. Okay, let's take a look at some of the Brooks comparisons here. First, let's look at the Ghost Max, which has DNA Loft V3 foam, which is what the Glycerin had before. It sits on a slightly higher platform, 39-33. So what you get in the Ghost Max is more forefoot cushioning than we have here, and a teeny bit more rear foot cushioning. It's a very similar shoe, although it's a 6mm drop. It runs quite similarly. I almost, as a kind of a shoe, both of them are shoes that I wouldn't consider fast stay shoes, reliable shoes. I almost prefer the Ghost Max. The DNA Loft foam is a little livelier, and maybe not quite as kind of springy, but kind of more cushioned in feel. And I think that's especially because you got more forefoot cushion. Now, in terms of its flex, you can see it's quite rigid, really, and is more rigid than our Glycerin 22. So I get a little quicker toe off in the Glycerin 22 with its higher drop. But this is sort of your more kind of slow and easy shoe par excellence in the Brooks line. Fit is very similar, maybe a little bit less aggressive in the Ghost Max 2, a little softer mesh. A little more plush in the collars, but really quite similar shoes. Now, the other big new shoe here from Brooks in 2024-25 is the Glycerin Max. Now, this one here, yes, it does come in at 10.6 ounces versus 10.2 for our Glycerin 22, but as you can see, it has a much higher stack. So we're sitting here at a big 39 at the front, 45 at the rear, so a big stack, quite a bit higher than our 38-28 in the Glycerin. And to make this thing move along, and I certainly would mention it has the same DNA tuned midsole with the softer center, co-molded with a bit firmer outer layer. But to make this thing move along, you can clearly see here the pronounced rocker, big rocker there in the front. That for me makes it a shoe that you need to go a little bit faster. It's a little bit less kind of easy going in terms of pace than our 10mm drop, more flexible Glycerin 22. Its upper, quite similar, in mesh, a little bit softer kind of mesh. You see we have a very different heel construction with a more conventional but high Achilles collar, whereas here we have the knit and the padding on the inside. You can see the difference. This is a long run shoe, kind of par excellence for moderate paces, maybe a little on the quick side, a little harder to turn over at slow paces. It is $200 versus $165 and $150. So Brooks has also given us price choices in their more max or super max cushion shoes. If I had to pick one, I think I still might lean more towards the Ghost Max 2 for its value and kind of more mellow ride. In a bigger shoe, I'd like a little more, I'd like a plate probably. I'd prefer a plate.
As we have in the more up-tempo Hyperion Max 2.
Or the Skyward X. And the Skyward X weighs
about half an ounce more.
But they're all really excellent. So the more up-tempo kind of big max cushion, the one in the middle with the higher drop, a good daily trainer, not a fast shoe for sure, and the most mellow of the bunch for those easy runs the Ghost Max 2. Now, I certainly enjoy this one for recovery, easier runs. It's really a fine choice for the beginner, for the heavier runner, and for those runs where you just don't want an agenda. Okay, quick final conclusion after my test runs. So the Glycerin 22, definitely a more stable, more secure, kind of more serious shoe than the 21 was for me in the regular upper, which really had a very sloppy fit that really got in the way of its ride. It has the new DNA-tuned midsole, which is springy, kind of dense, but springy. Lots of cushion here, lots of vibration absorbing characteristics as a 38-28 stack shoe. It's a high drop shoe, and if you just want to kind of roll forward easily, higher drops are generally better, at least for me, until you get into plated shoes. So for the beginner runner, the heavier runner, for the runner who just kind of wants to take it easy on their easier runs without thinking too much about it, it's a great choice. The upper is very secure, greatly improved. At 165 for a durable, which should be a really durable shoe with dual supercritical foam, superb quality. It's also a good value that won't get you in trouble on the run, and it'll give you a few smiles. Thank you very much for watching. We're also going to have a full multi-tester written review over on RoadTrailRun real soon. Have a great run.